Great to be here this afternoon. It's my second innovation conference with TechBridge, and I've got to say that it's just as inspiring as it was the first time, so I'm really glad to be here. She said the magic word. I'm a 1969 graduate of Keystone College, so I guess you know I'm that old. But I guess I should start by saying the first thing I'm not going to tell you is that this presentation was generated in ChatGPT. The second thing I'm not going to tell you is that I'm a professional in higher education, and I say that with complete humility because I am not. I've worked for 50 years in business and worked for some really remarkable companies, and I've been thinking a lot about how that life experience informs the value proposition for higher education. And, you know, it's no mystery. Higher education has been receiving a lot of attention lately, not only in terms of the affordability question, but certainly the debate that's raging these days with regard to relevance. And, you know, the relevance question, of course, redounds to things like being workforce ready. And while there's certainly learning models that are devoted to that, and I have great respect for that as well, but to me, it's a much more holistic issue. More importantly, if you talk to people in business itself, one of the first things that they tell you about, or what they tell you about the skills that they want in the individuals that they employ, are usually the soft skills, which we talked about a little earlier today. So you're talking about critical thinking, you're talking about problem solving, you're talking about communication, you're talking about you're talking about the ability to work in teams, so the social skills and things of that nature. So what I've been really trying to struggle, what I've been struggling with as a non-professional in the academic world, is how I could use, or let's say adapt a learning model or create a learning model that would in fact make the institution that I have more relevant and in fact make it stronger as an educational enterprise. So, you know, for me, it's really about educating the complete person. And, you know, folks like Leonardo da Vinci figured that out about 600 years ago. So it's developing the complete mind, and a lot of what we've been arguing about, I think, over the last couple of years, you know, is the relevance of liberal arts education. Keystone, of course, has a long tradition in that space, and as a practical matter, I think a lot of the things that have been, let's say, de-emphasized over the years kind of attack the basis of that model. One of the great stories that I like, and we all know this guy, Steve Jobs, told a story about when he was at Reed College in 1972 that he took a course in calligraphy. In fact, he audited the course. He didn't even get credit for it. And what he said many years later is that if he hadn't taken that course, he would have never had the inspiration to come up with the fonts that he embedded in the Apple II. And so it's really this connection that I consider to be really important in terms of the idea of integrating knowledge that really moves us forward. I spent 35 years at Gentex Corporation up in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, and my world consisted of platforms like this, and also especially this. I ran their ground soldier business for a bunch of years. And when I looked at, here's an F-35 helmet, which goes in the cockpit of that first photograph that I showed you. When I look at a helmet like this, I don't see a helmet. What I see is a convergence of a whole variety of technologies and disciplines that need to come together in a very specific way with a very specific outcome. So you're looking at things like human factors and physiology and anatomy and all sorts of sciences that come around that, in addition to things like the human cognitive side, which is really so important because you got a pilot flying it around at Mach 2 and at the same time trying to address things like targeting systems under threat. It's really a very unusual environment. So putting all these pieces together, having every one of those individual specialties innovate in certain ways, is really the basis for creating some highly specialized environments, and in fact, the launch pad for additional innovation. So it's this integration of knowledge that's really important. And in that world, the other piece of it is also doing it on a budget and on a schedule. So when you really think about it, applying the same principle in the organizational context, this is exactly how large-scale organizations run. So really important to think about it at that level. When I was at Gentex, I spent a few years in their corporate development area trying to support a number of acquisitions that the company made over time. And in one case, there was a company up in Boston, Massachusetts by the name of OpsCore, who I really felt represented a significant shift in head protection for ground soldiers, an opportunity to do something more than just conventional ballistic protection, and put together a head-borne system that would have the opportunity to integrate accessories across an entire span of functionalities, whether it was eye protection, respiratory protection, communications, and things of the like. So the company actually had a parallel company by the name of Artisant, who had all of the intellectual property associated with the OpsCore designs. And Artisant was actually an industrial design company. And when I got inside the company and began looking at what was there, what I suddenly discovered is that everyone who worked there was an artist. So I saw renderings like this. And after an effort of bringing them through the product realization process, it turns out to look like something like this. And so we had the basis for advanced head protection systems coming out of what was essentially an art and design capability. So I began thinking about how that informs what I'm doing at Keystone, and we've had a long art tradition. This is only one example of what I would call knowledge integration. We've got a long tradition in the arts, which, over a number of years has actually diminished in scale, and something that I'm really trying to bring back. So we do things like glass blowing and ceramics, and we also do visual arts of various types. And we also have this. We have a 3D printing capability. In fact, we have a 3D Center of Excellence at Keystone. So what I really see is a very strong association between, obviously, these two skills. So on one hand, you can have the whole complex associated with those who appreciate art and who can thrive in that arena, and those who want to live in the 3D world and create artifacts that can become part of 3D components. And if you put the two of them together, now you've got the backbone associated with creating something like an industrial design curriculum at the school. So these are the kinds of opportunities that I see that really can express integrated knowledge in a way that would be highly productive in terms of introducing creative concepts that I think would be very appealing to students. When you look at art by itself, I find that artists are some of the best problem solvers I see around. You've got all sorts of issues that are associated with how a final idea comes together. So they visualize things like color and material selection and scale, and also have to think deeply about the process as well as the equipment and tools that are needed. And then when you look on the 3D side, you've got a whole compendium of technologies that need to come together in that way as well. So much like I showed you in the helmet example, what you have is a constellation of technologies like material science. You need to know something about that in order to design products and also express them in 3D form, product realization opportunities, mechanical engineering, eventually manufacturing engineering when you get to the point where you're really going to transition this into the manufacturing space. So why is this really important, after all? We spent a lot of time talking about AI today. And in my mind, artificial intelligence, in spite of the downsides that we could see, really create great opportunities for bringing large amounts of information together. But at the end of the day, what we really need to find is a way to sharpen the saw with what I might call intuitive intelligence. So knowledge integration, in my mind, is the way to this. This is how you sharpen the saw in intuitive intelligence. AI will never do this for you. So the leaps and inspirations that we have that create innovation in so many ways really comes out of this side of the equation. And I really believe that knowledge integration is really the learning model that we should be following, certainly one that I espouse for what we're doing up at Keystone. So my good friend Albert Einstein said it best: intuition is knowing without thinking. And that's really, I think, where I see the benefit of knowledge integration across all of the disciplines that we have at the college, and finding ways to bring that together in ways that will create innovation as well as spur creative thinking. So that's it. I wanted to do this in 25 minutes or less, and I have, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
What's it like to be an alum and a president of a college?
It's actually intimidating. Actually, the most intimidating part of this job is the fact that we have so many supporters in the community that want to see it succeed. And every day I wake up thinking about how we can do that. And the outpouring support that I get from the community has just been remarkable. I don't think a day has gone by where somebody hasn't come up to me and said, "We really love Keystone, what can we do to help?" Yes, Ken.
It's Ken O'Krepke at Franklin. I mean, as president of a college, obviously the world is changing and pretty volatile, you know, in the higher ed space right now. I mean, how do you chart the course forward for the next 5 years? I mean, is it an investment in technology? Is it an investment in infrastructure? Is it an investment in marketing and sales? Is it positioning of the college? I mean, the next 5 years, if you're in the higher ed space, you know, the prediction is it's going to be a challenging place to be. You know, as a president, you know, how do you set the course for a school in LaPlum, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I hope every one of you heard it. You know, as I said when I started this, I'm a business guy. And, you know, I have to look at this, at least in terms of the visioning process, not only through the aspirations that I have as an educator, but more importantly, with the, let's say, a degree of realism in terms of what we can do with the resources that we have and the way we can marshal those resources to succeed. At the very basic basis of it, to me, it's first of all reinvesting or investing in our strengths. So, you know, we happen to be really good in natural sciences, we happen to be good in social sciences, we happen to have a good business program, we have early childhood education, we have psychology and the social sciences, I think I mentioned that. But as a environmental science is huge for us. We are doing some really remarkable science for a small college. I like to say small school, big science, and we really are. It's remarkable, the stuff that we're doing there. And the interesting part to me is having spent as much time as I did in the R&D space and looking at some of the challenges that we took on technically, and what I see the students and faculty doing from a research perspective, in my mind, just blows me away. So it's investing in our strengths, and certainly marketing to that, creating destination programs where we can, for example, in environmental science, coming up with innovative backbones that cut across different disciplines. I want to see psychology professors talking to economics classes so they understand what behavioral economics means. That, you know, how do we deal with risk? I mean, there's like thousands of examples like that. So it's trying to create a much more integrated environment where knowledge is shared, and we have a much more enriching environment as a result. Yes, Roddy.
You and I share a background. You know, we worked together when you were at Gentex. We did a lot of stuff together. And jumping into higher education, it was sort of a strange world to me when I first jumped in. And I'm curious to know from you, as you're in the deep end of the pool now, what has surprised you in a sort of a curiosity way about higher education that you've yet to figure out? Like, what's the one thing that, you know, you just can't figure it out yet, and sort of, you know, has your curiosity going as to how you fix it, how you get your hands around it?
Yeah, well, having worked in DoD for as long as I did, I'm, pretty used to highly regulated industries, but I got to say, this is really remarkable. I don't think I've ever seen an industry that's as regulated as higher education, so that's one piece. The other part of it is the reality associated with my business background, and that is it's all about speed and impact. So I like to have decisions made as crisply and as quickly as possible. And I'm really fortunate that I have a team that's able to do that. But, dragging the rest of the institution along at the rate of change that I'd like to see, that's a real challenge, So, I think it's that, it's the shared governance principles that we live by. It's those things. And it's not that they're impediments. They only become impediments if they're used offensively, if I can say that way. Fortunately, I have a very good relationship with faculty, so so far, my tires haven't been flattened when I come out from the office during the day. But I guess it's speed. Speed of transformation, I think, is really the main issue. And I'm really impressed by what you're doing at Alvernia. I've seen a number of things over the last few years, certainly last year when John Loyak was here, some of the things that you talked about back then. So even in this one-year hiatus, between the last time we got together, it's really remarkable to see what you're doing. So I'm kind of impressed at the speed and impact that you folks have as well.
I actually have a quick question over here, too. So in the last panel, the discussion, we kind of touched on the fact that, not culture, but creativity in the arts programs in the middle schools and elementary schools have been decreased. But you touched that Keystone has a really good arts program. Are you finding that there's a smaller amount of students coming in for arts programs, or is there a more interest because they're not being exposed to it earlier on?
So here's the dirty little secret. We actually taught out the art program. And I found that to be antithetical to what we were trying to accomplish as a college. And everywhere I went, people said, why aren't you doing something in the art program? Because that's your legacy. So we are bringing it back. I want it to come back. We have two new backbones in the academic side, one in visual arts and one in arts and entrepreneurship, because people don't necessarily know how to make a living in the arts, which is really important. And we're also trying to create some sponsorship opportunities and a financial network around that as well. So it's to me it's part of our DNA. Again, from the business perspective, everything for me is about differentiation. Everybody's got pretty much the same stuff in the catalog, but I think it's the edges that really matter. So if we're talking about expressing a legacy capability that we've had and we've been known for quite some time, it just seems to me that bringing that back in a form that would be contemporary would be the right thing to do. And frankly, the high school systems around us agree. So.
Hi, Tim Wolf, Director of Human Resources with the Scranton School District. I think this is a great time to kind of connect all of the dots with the previous panel and also with you with Keystone College. Your college has done a great job with the LEAP program, which is a learn-to-earn program, which allows, if you're not familiar with it, it allows teachers to work under an emergency permit while they're going to Keystone College. We'll just stick with while they're going to Keystone College to receive their credits and seek a certification with an education. So we're very proud of the partnership, and your people have done a very, very nice job connecting with us. We had 19 teachers working through your program last year, and we're looking to bring some of those people back. So I want to commend you for the innovation and creativity. You just talked about the fringes and all those little things. So that is a program, at least for the Scranton School District and the students of the Scranton School District, that has been tremendously positive experience. So anyway, search Keystone College, LEAP, and then Scranton School District. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. It's really a very innovative program. We're very proud to be part of it. We're continuing to push funding to expand it, and I think we have another 30 or 40 teachers going into that program in the fall, which is very exciting for us. I think to come back to your question, Rodney, the one thing that I probably take away and did not have an appreciation for was how important the secondary school system was to the college. and let's say the level of integration that we are trying to create, not only through dual enrollment programs, but also enrichment programs like art, for example. We also have a performance music program at Keystone, which is not a degree-bearing program, but incorporates musicians who are not only students doing other things, but also high school students, you know, in the upper grades who have an opportunity to play with a jazz ensemble, a symphonic group, and the like. And it's that level of integration that I think is really important. But I have learned the value of understanding what the high schools are all about to the college environment, and it's huge.